The Searchers was not just another John Wayne Western, it was a cinematic indictment of America's original sin. A film so dark and morally complex that the studio that released it had no idea what to do with it. What audiences saw as a grand adventure was actually a journey into the heart of racism, obsession, and a man's soul damned. Behind the scenes of this legendary masterpiece, a different kind of war raged, one with a director's psychological warfare, a star's battle with his own heroic image, a young actress's near-fatal accident, and a studio so bewildered they tried to bury it. These are not just production notes, they are the battle scars from the making of a film that was decades ahead of its time. Today, we are riding into the forbidden territory of film history with 20 weird facts about The Searchers. And stay tuned to the end for a bonus fact about the film's final, iconic shot that is so technically and thematically shocking, it will change how you see the movie forever. Number 20. The studio hated the film's dark themes and tried to kill it. Warner Brothers did not just misunderstand The Searchers, they were actively repulsed by it. Executives who saw the early cuts were horrified by its unflinching exploration of racism and its deeply ambiguous hero. What audiences did not know was that the studio considered it unreleasable and a potential commercial disaster. They were not just nervous, they were panicked. The film's refusal to offer easy answers or paint its characters in simple black and white terms was completely alien to Hollywood. In 1956, this was not just a creative disagreement, it was a fundamental clash of ideologies. The studio wanted a heroic John Wayne Western. Ford delivered a complex character study about a man they saw as a villain. Warner Brothers quietly dumped it into theaters with minimal promotion, a strategy they assumed would consign it to the dustbin of history. They were not just releasing a film, they were trying to make it disappear. Number 19. John Ford brutalized the cast to get authentic performances. John Ford was not just a director, he was a tyrant who used psychological warfare as a directing tool. On the set of The Searchers, his cruelty reached new heights. What audiences did not know was that Ford deliberately humiliated his actors to break them down, believing it would yield more realistic performances. He was not just guiding actors, he was assaulting their psyches. He publicly berated Ken Curtis, calling him a singing fool to make him feel insecure. He relentlessly taunted Jeffrey Hunter about his inexperience. The most shocking abuse was reserved for Ward Bond, whom Ford goaded into a genuine rage before takes. This was not just method directing, it was emotional abuse disguised as artistry. The cast lived in a state of constant fear, creating an on-set atmosphere as tense and unforgiving as the Texas desert itself. The film's raw power comes, in part, from the real torment Ford inflicted on his players. Number 18. John Wayne was deeply uncomfortable with Ethan Edwards' racism. John Wayne was not just playing a racist, he was fighting a battle with his own iconic image. Ethan Edwards' hatred and bigotry were so extreme that Wayne, a staunch conservative, privately expressed profound discomfort with the character. What audiences did not know was that Wayne argued with Ford, trying to soften Ethan's most venomous lines and actions. He was not just protecting his brand, he was genuinely disturbed by the character's darkness. Ford refused, insisting that Wayne portray the racism without any of his usual heroic charm or winks to the audience. This created a tense dynamic on set, with Wayne feeling trapped between his director's vision and his own persona. The result is one of the most complex performances of his career, a hero who is also undeniably a monster. It was not just acting. It was a star forced to confront the ugly underbelly of the very mythology he had helped create. Number 17, Natalie Wood's river stunt was a near-death experience covered up by the studio. The scene where Lucy is chased across the river is one of the film's most terrifying moments. For 18-year-old Natalie Wood, it was terrifyingly real. What audiences did not know was that Wood was nearly swept away by the powerful current and almost drowned. The harness holding her to a hidden wire snapped, plunging her into the frigid, rushing water. It was not just a close call, it was a life-threatening emergency. Crew members, including her own brother, had to dive in to save her from being swept downstream. The most shocking part, Warner Brothers, terrified of negative publicity and potential lawsuits, forced the entire cast and crew to sign non-disclosure agreements. The incident was buried for decades. It was not just a production accident, it was a studio conspiracy to hide a tragedy. The fear you see on Wood's face in that scene is not acting. It is the raw terror of a young woman who almost lost her life for a shot. Number 16. The film's controversial ending was intentionally ambiguous to enrage censors. The Searchers ending, where Ethan Edwards leaves his family and walks away into the desert, is one of the most debated in cinema history. What audiences did not know was that John Ford deliberately made it ambiguous to get past the Hays Code censors, who demanded a clear, moral conclusion. Ford was not just telling a story, he was outsmarting the system. He offered the censors a happy ending, Ethan bringing Debbie home while undercutting it with the visual of Ethan's eternal exile. He knew the censors would focus on the plot point, not the subversive visual poetry. This was not just a creative choice, it was an act of cinematic rebellion. The ending is a masterclass in subtext, allowing Ford to have his cake and eat it too. He gave the studio the resolution they wanted while delivering a Sayuai final, haunting image of a man who can never be part of the civilization he supposedly saved. Number 15. The casting of a white actress as a Native American was a major point of contention. Even in 1956, the decision to cast Natalie Wood, a white actress, as the abducted Debbie, who was raised as Comanche, was controversial. What audiences did not know was that Ford and the studio were heavily criticized by Native American advocacy groups for this choice. It was not just a standard Hollywood practice, it was a point of active debate. Ford's defense was that he needed a star with name recognition, but the decision perpetuated the harmful industry trend of red face. The most ironic part, Wood's own heritage was often questioned by the press, with some outlets incorrectly claiming she had Native American ancestry to justify the casting. This was not just a casting footnote. It was a reflection of Hollywood's deep-seated racial issues, a problem the film itself was trying to critique while simultaneously participating in it. The casting remains one of the film's most significant ethical blind spots. Number 14. Ford deliberately manipulated the weather to create a living landscape. John Ford did not just shoot in Monument Valley, he waged war against it. He was infamous for waiting for days, even weeks, for the perfect cloud, the perfect storm, the perfect slant of light. What audiences did not know was that Ford saw the landscape as a character, and he would direct it with the same tyrannical control he used on his actors. He was not just capturing scenery, he was forcing nature to perform. He would hold up the entire expensive production for a single, dramatic cloud formation. The most famous example is the incredible thunderstorm that appears during the cavalry's raid. It was not a lucky break. It was the result of Ford's obsessive patience and his deep understanding of the desert's meteorological rhythms. This was not just filmmaking, it was a collaboration with God, and Ford always demanded that God do what he said. Number 13. The film's real-life Comanche consultant was fired for being too authentic. In a rare move for the time, Ford hired a Comanche consultant, a man named Iron Eyes Cody, to ensure authenticity in the film's portrayal of Native American culture. What audiences did not know was that Cody was fired midway through production for being too difficult. The real reason? He was objecting to Ford's Hollywoodized version of Comanche life. He was not just a consultant, he was a truth teller. Cody argued that the costumes were wrong, the dialogue was wrong, and the cultural practices were wrong. Ford, the ultimate auteur, had no use for this level of realism when it clashed with his artistic vision. It was not just a creative disagreement, it was a clash between documentary truth and cinematic myth. The firing meant the film's Comanche elements reverted to the standard, romanticized Hollywood version, a missed opportunity for genuine representation that Ford was unwilling to take. Number 12. John Ford and cinematographer Wynton C. Hoche clashed violently over the film's look. The Searchers' breathtaking VistaVision cinematography was the result of a brutal behind-the-scenes battle. Director John Ford and his cinematographer Wynton C. Hoche clashed repeatedly over the film's visual style. What audiences did not know was that Ford wanted a harsh, saturated, almost ugly look to reflect the story's brutality, while Hoche fought for a more traditional, painterly beauty. It was not just a difference of opinion, it was a war of aesthetics. Ford would often override Hoche, demanding harsher lighting and more stark compositions. The most intense argument was over the film's famous deep shadows and high contrast look, which Ford insisted on to represent Ethan's inner darkness. Hulk felt it was unnatural. This was not just a technical debate, it was a fight for the film's soul. The final, stunning look is a testament to Ford's iron will, a visual style that was born from conflict and perfectly mirrors the film's thematic tensions. Number 11. The film was a box office disappointment and critical afterthought. Today, The Searchers is hailed as one of the greatest films ever made. In 1956, it was a moderate success that was quickly forgotten. What audiences did not know was that the film received lukewarm reviews and failed to make a significant impact at the box office, especially when compared to other Wayne westerns of the era. Critics found it bleak, strange, and morally confusing. It was not just a mixed reception, it was a collective shrug from the public and critics alike. The film's dark themes and unsympathetic hero simply did not connect with a mainstream audience looking for straightforward entertainment. For years, it was considered a minor, somewhat peculiar entry in both Ford's and Wayne's filmographies. It was not until the auteur-driven film criticism of the 1960s and 70s that the film was re-evaluated and its genius was finally recognized. Its initial failure is a stark reminder that true masterpieces are often ahead of their time. Number 10. The film's rediscovery was led by a new generation of filmmakers. The Searchers' reputation was not resurrected by critics or scholars. It was championed by the new Hollywood directors of the 1970s. What audiences did not know was that filmmakers like Martin Scorsese, Steven Spielberg, and George Lucas viewed the film as a masterclass in cinematic storytelling. They were not just fans, they were acolytes. Scorsese called it a tragedy and cited its visual boldness as a major influence. Lucas famously modeled the Star Wars opening scene on the film's final shot. Spielberg called Ethan Edwards the most compelling character in the history of Westerns. This passionate advocacy from a new generation of Hollywood's elite forced a critical re-examination, transforming The Searchers from a forgotten curio into the cinematic titan it is today. Its legacy was not earned. It was fought for by the very filmmakers it inspired. Number 9. The famous doorframe shot is a direct visual metaphor for exclusion. The final iconic shot of John Wayne framed in the doorway, an outsider looking in, is one of the most analyzed images in cinema. What audiences did not know was that this was John Ford's visual thesis statement for the entire film. It was not just a cool composition, it was a metaphor made literal. Ford uses doorways and frames throughout the film to separate Ethan from the world of family and civilization. He is constantly framed by windows, by the openings of caves, by the gaps in rocks. It was not just a recurring motif, it was a visual language. The final shot is the ultimate expression of this idea. Ethan can bring Debbie home, but he can never enter that home himself. He is forever condemned to the wilderness, both outside and inside. It is a silent, devastating commentary on the price of his obsession and his inability to be civilized. This single image contains the entire tragic arc of his character. Number 8. Ken Curtis's singing was a deliberate annoyance to Ford. Ken Curtis, who plays Charlie McCory, was not just a character actor, he was a professional singer, and Ford used his talent as a tool of on-screen irritation. What audiences did not know was that Ford instructed Curtis to sing his songs slightly off-key and at the most inappropriate times. It was not just a character choice, it was a deliberate directorial decision. Ford wanted Charlie's singing to be a symbol of the clumsy, encroaching civilization that annoys the solitary Ethan. The songs are meant to be grating, a sonic representation of the world Ethan has rejected. Curtis, a talented musician, had to deliberately perform badly to achieve Ford's vision. This was not just a quirky character trait, it was a subtle piece of thematic storytelling woven into the film's soundscape. Every time you hear Charlie's slightly off-key warbling, you are hearing Ford's commentary on the annoying persistence of domesticity. Number 7. The film is a reunion of Ford's stock company. The Searchers feels like a cohesive, lived-in world because it was populated by John Ford's unofficial family, his legendary stock company of actors. What audiences did not know was that nearly every major role besides the leads was filled by an actor Ford had worked with dozens of times before. It was not just convenient casting, it was a company of players who understood the director's shorthand and could embody his vision with minimal direction. Ward Bond, Harry Carey Jr., John Quallen, Mae Marsh. They were not just actors. They were Ford's repertory company, a living extension of his own cinematic language. Their easy, naturalistic chemistry gives the film its authentic texture. They were not just playing roles, they were continuing a long-standing collaboration, a family reunion captured on film. This deep well of shared history is an invisible ingredient that gives the film its incredible power and sense of timelessness. Number 6. The film's score heavily features a controversial folk song. The film's musical score, by Max Steiner, is built around a recurring theme based on the American folk song Lorena. What audiences did not know was that this song was a popular Confederate ballad during the Civil War. Its inclusion in the film is a deeply ironic and loaded choice. It was not just a pretty melody, it was a musical ghost from America's past, a song of loss and longing associated with a lost cause. By using it as the primary theme for Ethan's quest, Ford is musically linking Ethan's obsessive, backward-looking quest to the doomed ideology of the Confederacy. It was not just background music, it was a thematic statement about a man fighting a war that is already over, clinging to a past that can never be reclaimed. This subtle musical choice adds another layer of tragedy and critique to Ethan's character. Number 5. The film's story was based on a real-life captivity narrative. The core of the Searchers' plot. The kidnapping of a white girl by Comanches and the long search to rescue her was not just a fictional invention. It was drawn directly from the real-life 1836 kidnapping of Cynthia Ann Parker in Texas. What audiences did not know was that this story was a foundational myth of the American West, a tale that had been told and retold for over a century. Ford and screenwriter Frank S. Nugent did not just use it as inspiration, they built their entire narrative around its framework. The real Cynthia Ann Parker was assimilated into the Comanche tribe, married a chief, and had children. She was rescued by Texas Rangers years later, but was miserable in white society and died trying to escape back to her Comanche family. This real-life tragedy adds a layer of profound, heartbreaking irony to the film's story, suggesting that Debbie's rescue may not be a happy ending at all. Number 4. A key scene showing the aftermath of a raid was cut and is now lost. The original cut of The Searchers contained a powerful scene showing the funeral of the victims of the initial raid on the Edwards homestead. What audiences did not know was that this scene was cut by the studio before release and is now considered lost. It was not just a trim, it was the removal of the film's moral center. The scene would have shown the community grieving together, providing a stark contrast to Ethan's solitary, vengeful quest. Its absence makes Ethan's isolation even more profound but also removes a key moment of communal healing. Film historians have searched for this footage for decades in the Warner Brothers vaults, but it has never been found. It was not just a deleted scene, it was a missing piece of the film's thematic puzzle, a ghost that haunts the final cut and leaves us to wonder what a more complete version of Ford's vision might have felt like. Number 3. Ethan's Confederate uniform is a crucial unspoken detail. Ethan Edwards wears a Confederate uniform jacket throughout the film, a detail that is never explicitly mentioned but is absolutely essential to understanding his character. What audiences did not know was that this costume choice was a deliberate and loaded statement by Ford. It was not just a period costume, it was a symbol. Ethan is not just a veteran, he is a veteran of the losing side, a man who fought for a cause based on oppression and is now adrift in a world that has moved on without him. His racism is not just personal prejudice, it is the last, dying gasp of the Confederate ideology he fought for. His entire quest can be seen as an attempt to impose his old world, racist order on a new world. It was not just an outfit, it was his entire worldview, worn on his back for all to see, even if no one in the film dares to mention it. Number 2, the film's influence on Star Wars is direct and profound. George Lucas has never hidden his love for The Searchers, but his debt to it is more direct than most people realize. What audiences did not know was that the plot structure of the original Star Wars is a direct science fiction transposition of Ford's film. Luke Skywalker's journey mirrors Martin Pauly's. A young man joins a cynical, older loner, Obi-Wan Yuri Han Solo as Ethan, on a quest to rescue a captive princess, Leia as Debbie, from a militaristic, non-human enemy, the Empire as the Comanche. The famous opening shot of Star Wars with the giant Star Destroyer filling the frame is a direct homage to the Searcher's final shot of Wayne in the doorway, using scale to create a sense of epic scope and isolation. It was not just an influence, it was a blueprint. Lucas took Ford's dark, psychological Western and reimagined it as a space opera, proving the timeless power of its core themes of family, obsession, and redemption. Number 1. The final shot implies. Ethan is trapped between two worlds forever. The most debated element of The Searchers is its final image. The common interpretation is that Ethan is an outsider who can never join civilization. But a deeper, more shocking reading suggests something even more tragic. What audiences did not know was that Ford is visually stating that Ethan is now a man without a country, trapped between the white world and the Comanche world he has come to resemble. He has adopted their tactics, their stoicism, their connection to the land. He can no longer fit in the civilized world of the homestead, but he is not truly of the wild either. It was not just an ending, it was a statement of cultural purgatory. The doorframe does not just separate him from his family, it separates him from humanity itself. He has become what he hunted, a ghost doomed to wander the borderlands between two worlds, belonging to neither. It is a fate arguably worse than death. Bonus fact, the final shot was achieved with a secret double exposure. The technical execution of the film's final, iconic shot is a piece of movie magic hidden in plain sight. What audiences did not know was that the image of John Wayne standing in the doorway, with the vast desert visible through the opening behind him, was not a simple single take. It was created using a carefully controlled double exposure, an in-camera effect that was both difficult and innovative for its time. Ford and cinematographer Wynton C. Hosh first shot the interior scene with the doorway overexposed, creating a pure white window. Then, in the same take, they rewound the film and shot the exterior Monument Valley scene using the white window as a matte to composite the two images seamlessly. It was not just a shot, it was a special effect. This technique allowed Ford to achieve a surreal, dreamlike quality, making the desert behind Wayne look both impossibly vast and intimately connected to the interior space. It is a technical marvel that serves the film's most powerful thematic statement, a perfect fusion of cinematic craft and artistic vision. The Searchers stands today not just as a great Western, but as a profound and disturbing American epic. It is a film that asks uncomfortable questions about the foundation of the American myth, forcing us to confront the racism and obsession that lie just beneath the surface of our national story. What we see on screen is a grand adventure, but what we feel is the moral rot at the heart of its hero. The film's legacy is its complexity. It refuses to be easily categorized or understood. It is simultaneously a celebration and a condemnation of the West, a thrilling adventure and a deep tragedy. It is a film that grows darker and more challenging with each viewing, revealing new layers of meaning and ambiguity. John Ford, the man who built the myth of the American West, spent the end of his career deconstructing that very same myth, and The Searchers is his masterpiece of deconstruction. The next time you watch The Searchers, remember the battles fought to create its dark beauty. Remember the studio that hated it, the star who feared it, and the director who waged war on his own cast to get it right. Because in the world of The Searchers, the line between hero and villain, civilization and savagery is not a line at all, but a vast, unforgiving desert.